Oh, dysbiosis. That's another one. Who doesn't have dysbiosis today? You know, how many people have food allergies or they have what's called leaky gut? I mean, I know people. I had somebody come into me. Was it day before yesterday at this point? I was in Las Vegas yesterday, guys. I'm trying to figure it out. I think it was the day before yesterday. I've been working on my candida now for 7 years. It was like a badge of honor. I've been working on my dysbiosis for 7 years now. If you've been working on your dysbiosis 7 years, someone has not given you good direction. Because there is something influencing your immune system to allow those critters to keep growing. It's not anything that's radical. It's like you've got microflora. High sugar diets, antibiotics, chemotherapy, corticosteroids, NSAIDs, oral contraceptives. All these drugs can influence it. Diet influences it. Heavy metal exposure. Mercury loves to get into the intestine, right? And then candida is actually growing. It's your friend. See, we've been doing it wrong. We're saying kill the candida. We're supposed to be embracing it. Candida, you're my friend. Why? It's binding the mercury up. Now, do we want lots of candida down there? No. Do we want lots of mercury in us? No. So we get rid of the mercury. Candida doesn't need to be there anymore. And we have to clean it up. We've got to use things like cat's claw and olive leaf, and if you're using drug therapy, things like nystatin, fluconazole, all kinds of things. But the reality is, all kinds of things disturb the gastrointestinal tract and shift you out of microbalance, which erodes the lining of the gut, creates mucosal barrier disruption. You start getting intolerance to things like gluten. You start absorbing too much glutamine, people taking big bunches of glutamine, and they also happen to have glutamate transport problems in their brain, so their glutamate transport's overwhelmed. So it opens up your calcium channels in your brain and damages your neuronal membranes in your brain. That's why they're seeing this, like in schizophrenia, when they take them off gluten, about 3% of them, go totally well. It's because you're not overloading their glutamate transport mechanism anymore, and they're not getting neuronal toxicity in their brain anymore. It's called excitotoxicity. Russell Blaylock wrote a great book on it. Be a neurosurgeon, real bright guy. I mean, he's fantastic. So, can I get over yeast? I got just a few more minutes left. I don't want to miss. Disorders that are related to leaky gut. So where do we go from? We went from pituitary, hypothalamus, adrenals, pancreas, toxicity, gut. Right? So what disorders are going to show up with a leaky gut? Well, it's obvious. You've got things like, type 1 diabetes now, right? We're seeing gluten cross intolerance with some type 1 diabetics, as well as dairy intolerance in type 2 and type 1 diabetics. But systemic lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, attention deficit. Now, what do we hear? For a good example, the autistic population. Autistic population right now, if you go and you talk to a lot of practitioners, everything's about mercury. Mercury, 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 and you can't detoxify. Well, for some people, it's mercury, and then it's mercury plus yeast, and it's mercury plus yeast plus their amino acids, plus they have altered neurotransmitters in their brain, plus their amino acid pool's compromised, plus they've had extensive antibiotic use, plus their mom and dad are getting a divorce because the kid's autistic and they have a very high rate of divorce, and so they have to take that stress. Plus, the teacher they had at school happens to be cruel. Oh, yeah, it's just a mercury problem, right? Just like my weight problem is just I eating too much and exercising not enough, right? So when we look at this stuff, it's like layers of intoxication. Your gut's going to be involved a lot of the time because it's where you absorb your nutrients. And as your metabolism gets altered and as your immunity gets altered, you can't patrol those bugs. It's kind of like the old story. You walk in, you go to the forest, you go in the forest, you go, wow, look at that tree, right? Look at that tree, 200-foot tall tree, a little line of fungus around it. Dead tree in 2 years. 3 years, it's a dead tree growing lots of fungus on it. 4 years, it's a dead tree growing lots of fungus on it, and all kinds of bugs are going through it. 5 years, it's powder. The tree's immune system, when it was a 200-foot tree and one little line of fungus, was compromised. Why does somebody die of aspergillosis in a hospital undergoing chemotherapy and the nurse taking care of them is fine? It's our individual immunity, right? So, Important, of course, to recognize, I just threw up here, we've written quite a few books on drug-induced nutrient depletion. I say we, because I've got a writing team, and actually people that write better and are much smarter. So benzodiazepines. If we're talking about sleep, people come in, oh, I'm on Klonopin to help me sleep, clonazepam. Great. It depletes melatonin. So it knocks you out, but you don't feel rested in the morning. So a big area for you to go into docs and talk to them about is, man, drug-induced nutrient depletion. Oh, you got people on clonazepam to help them sleep? Great. Now their melatonin pool's low, so they can't go into deep REM sleep, so you've artificially induced their sleep. That's what's happening. And they're not getting deep REM sleep, and I challenge you. You tell your docs, ask your patients, do you feel rested in the morning when you're taking a benzodiazepine to get you to sleep? No. I slept. The lights went out, and I woke up, it was morning. Do you feel rested? Nope. Doesn't happen. CoQ10, obviously. I mean, CoQ10 for the non-obvious. There's the obvious reason if I take a drug that depletes CoQ10 and then I lose it out of my cardiac tissue, but you know what's more important? As you lose CoQ10 out of your tissues, you lose the ability to generate ATP, and that means you create mitochondrial deficiencies. When I create mitochondrial deficiencies, I can't regulate my insulin, so I get fatter. I mean, it's one of those stories where people come in and go, oh, hey, your cholesterol's down. Great. The drug got my cholesterol down, but did you lose weight? Are you able to lose weight? Most time people's weights are actually going in the other direction because with mitochondrial uncoupling, kidneys become less efficient. Insulin, the beta cells can't make insulin like they're supposed to. My brain doesn't want to think like it's supposed to. I get more oxidation, more glucose turning into glycation. So there's a lot of drugs depleting CoQ10, incredibly important nutrient. Nutrients for thyroid, don't understand. I mean, iodine's so important. Chromium and selenium. I mean, chromium is needed. When Anderson did his work at the USDA, he cited 1,200 to 1,600 micrograms of chromium was needed. You know what everybody thinks? 200 mics a day is what you do for chromium. Most of our patients that are insulin resistant or having trouble with losing weight, I put them on 1,600 micrograms of chromium a day, and you know what? Their insulin resistance starts going away. Now, do you keep them there after you replete their tissues? No, you don't. You start to back it back, but you got to build it back. If you think you're going to fix somebody's, their insulin resistance by a 200 microgram dose of chromium a day, it's not going to happen. You'll never get past the deficit. You'll never get past that deficit. So, chromium, incredibly important.